Let me tell you a story. It's a story about a company that started long before any of us ever picked up a controller. This story begins way back in 1889, in the beautiful city of Kyoto, Japan. A craftsman named Fusajiro Yamauchi started a small business. He wasn't making video games, he wasn't thinking about computers, he was making something much simpler. He was making handmade playing cards. These were called Hanafuda cards. They were beautiful, detailed cards used for various fun games. This small company was named Nintendo. Nintendo grew steadily over the years. The company became known for its high-quality playing cards. Yamauchi's family continued the business, passing it down through generations. They even made a deal with Disney in the 1950s to put famous characters like Mickey Mouse on their cards. This was a huge success. It showed that Nintendo knew how to connect with families and bring joy into people's homes. The 1970s brought a technological revolution. The world was buzzing with excitement about electronics. Arcades were starting to pop up with simple but captivating video games. At Nintendo, Hiroshi Yamauchi saw this trend. He decided to steer the company in a completely new direction. Nintendo created a new division dedicated to games. They started small, importing and distributing an American home video game console called the Magnavox Odyssey in Japan. This was their first taste of the video game market, and it was a valuable learning experience. In 1977, they launched their very first home video game console. It was called the Color TV game. Instead, it was a dedicated machine that played a few variations of a single game, much like Pong. The first version, Color TV Game 6, let two players control paddles on their television screen to play 6 versions of light tennis. It was simple, but it was a massive hit in Japan. They also released Color TV Game Racing 112, a racing game with a steering wheel and gearshift controller. One of the key figures in this transition was a young engineer named Shigeru Miyamoto. He joined Nintendo in 1977, originally as an artist. Miyamoto's creative genius would go on to define Nintendo's philosophy. Another world was exploding in popularity. The arcades were the epicenters of youth culture, flashing lights, exciting sounds, coin-operated video games. Nintendo wanted a piece of this action. They began developing arcade games. Early attempts, Sheriff Radar Scope, modest success but no global hit. Thousands of unsold Radar Scope machines sat in a warehouse. A new game was needed, fast. The crisis became a turning point. Shigeru Miyamoto was tasked with a new game for Radar Scope cabinets. Instead of a spaceship shooter, he created a story. A carpenter protagonist trying to rescue his girlfriend, a giant ape throwing barrels. The character's Jumpman Donkey Kong. Donkey Kong released in 1981. An absolute sensation. Meanwhile, Gunpei Yokoi had an idea. On a bullet train, he watched a businessman tap a calculator. He wondered, could that device be a game? That led to Game & Watch Small, portable devices, single game built-in clock function. Simple, affordable, incredibly addictive. The first Game & Watch Ball, released in 1980. Immediate success? Perfect to take anywhere, a global phenomenon. Yokoi's philosophy, lateral thinking with withered technology. Use simple, mature, inexpensive tech in creative ways. By the early 1980s, the home video game market in North America had crashed. It crashed hard. The market was flooded with too many low-quality games and consoles. Consumers lost faith. Retailers didn't want anything to do with video games. But over in Japan, Nintendo was about to launch something truly special. In 1983, they released the family computer, the Famicom. It was a powerful machine for its time, capable of colorful, complex games that looked far superior. The Famicom was a massive success in Japan. Nintendo of America wanted to bring it west, but the word video game was toxic to retailers. So they hatched a plan. They didn't call it a video game console. They branded it the Nintendo Entertainment System, the NES. They designed it to look like home electronics, not a toy, like a VCR. It even had a front-loading slot for cartridges, which they called game packs. But the real secret was the games. Nintendo controlled quality tightly. Every title had to earn the Nintendo seal of quality. Leading the charge was Super Mario Bros., game packed with many consoles. Super Mario Bros. Gameplay and controller close-ups. It was a masterpiece of design. The controls were perfect. The world was full of secrets. It was pure, unfiltered fun. The NES revitalized the video game industry. It brought gaming back into living rooms. The NES wasn't just a console, it was a cultural landmark. It proved games weren't a fad but a new form of entertainment. Following the monumental success of the NES, Nintendo was dominating living rooms around the world. But Gunpei Yokoi, the creator of the Game & Watch, had another big idea. He wanted to combine the portability of the Game & Watch with the interchangeable cartridge system of the NES. He envisioned a handheld system where you could play a huge library of different games anywhere you wanted. This was a bold and ambitious concept. Creating a powerful, portable, and affordable system with a decent screen and battery life was a major engineering challenge in the late 1980s. In 1989, Nintendo launched the Game Boy. Technologically, it wasn't the most advanced handheld on the market. Competitors like the Atari Lynx had color screens and more powerful hardware. But the Game Boy followed Yokoi's philosophy. It had a simple, monochrome green and black screen. It was bulky and built like a tank. But it was also affordable and its battery life was incredible. You could play for hours and hours on just 4 AA batteries. Durability, affordability, and battery life were the keys to its design. The bet paid off, thanks in large part to one killer app, Tetris. Nintendo secured the rights to bundle the addictive puzzle game with every Game Boy sold in North America. It was the perfect match. Tetris was simple to understand but impossible to master. It appealed to everyone from kids to adults. People who had never played a video game before were suddenly hooked on arranging falling blocks on their Game Boy. It was a stroke of genius that helped the Game Boy become an instant cultural icon. As the gaming world moved into the 1990s, a new technological race began. The race to 3D. Nintendo's competitors were releasing powerful consoles that pushed pixels in new and exciting ways. Nintendo answered with the Super Nintendo Entertainment System, or SNES, a 16-bit powerhouse. Super Metroid, The Legend of Zelda, A Link to the Past. But the true leap into the third dimension came in 1996 with the launch of the Nintendo 64. This system was designed from the ground up to deliver incredible 3D worlds. The Nintendo 64 was a marvel of innovation. Its most important feature was the new controller. It introduced two revolutionary concepts to the world. The first was the analog stick, which allowed for precise 360-degree movement in a 3D space. The second was the Rumble Pack, an accessory that plugged into the controller and made it vibrate in response to in-game actions. These innovations fundamentally changed how we interact with games. They became the standard for virtually every console controller that followed. Of course, a new console needs a groundbreaking game, and the Nintendo 64 had one of the greatest of all time, Super Mario 64. This game wasn't just a step forward, it was a giant leap for all of gaming. Shigeru Miyamoto and his team wrote the rulebook for 3D platforming. They created a game that was all about the joy of movement, running, jumping, exploring Princess Peach's castle and its magical paintings. It provided a blueprint that countless other games would follow. Then came Ocarina of Time, which applied these 3D principles to the adventure genre, creating what many still consider the greatest video game ever made. Nintendo continued to innovate with each new generation. The Nintendo GameCube focused on a compact design and unique, fun games. The Nintendo DS introduced dual screens and a touchscreen to handheld gaming, opening up completely new styles of play. Then came the Wii, a system that brought motion controls to the masses. It proved once again that Nintendo's focus was not on having the most powerful graphics, but on creating new, fun, and accessible ways to play. It was always about the fun. Looking back, it's clear that Nintendo's journey is one of relentless innovation and a deep understanding of what makes games fun. From the simple joy of Hanafuda cards to the sprawling worlds of Hyrule, the core mission has always been to put smiles on people's faces. Nintendo's consoles were never just about specs, they were about creating new experiences. The NES controller's D-pad, the Game Boy's portability, the N64's analog stick, and the Wii's motion controls each rewrote the very language of how we play. The characters and worlds Nintendo created have become a part of our global culture. Mario, The Legend of Zelda, Pokémon. These aren't just franchises, they are beloved touchstones for multiple generations. They represent creativity, quality, and a commitment to family-friendly entertainment. Nintendo proved that games could be more than just a pastime, they could be a source of shared memories and lasting joy for everyone, from all walks of life. Today, that legacy continues with the Nintendo Switch. This system perfectly embodies the company's history of innovation. It combines the power of a home console with the freedom of a handheld system, fulfilling a dream that began with the Game Boy. It's a system that can be played alone on a bus or shared with friends on a big screen TV. It's flexible, social, and most importantly, home to an incredible library of games that prioritize fun and creativity, above all else. Nintendo's influence is everywhere. Every time you move a character with an analog stick or feel a controller rumble in your hands, you are experiencing a piece of Nintendo's legacy. The story of Nintendo is a reminder that the goal isn't just to make games, but to make memories, and that is a mission that will never get old.